Hello everyone and welcome back. If you've never tried to color grade something using notes and you have no idea how to use them, today it will be easier to understand how to do that, because today we're talking about the note editor. The note editor is located on the right part of your color page, containing these strange rectangle things that I use to color grade your image. And today we're going to talk about that. First of all, let's have a look how we can move through this space. I can middle mouse click in order to drag it, or you can use this little hand to do the same thing. We can zoom in and out either by holding control and not control, either by holding Alt and moving my scroll wheel up or down, or by using this slider which is responsible for zooming in and out. Also, without pressing anything and just moving my scroll wheel back and down, back and down, up and down, we are going to scroll through this space up and down. So let's zoom in order to view what is going to be displayed on this particular small note, because every correction that you do, well, not every, but as many as it can fit, will be displayed underneath the image of the note. It is easier to show than to explain. So let's, for example, use our color wheels. And now this note is showing us that we are using the color wheels indeed. Whoops. If I use custom curves, for example, custom curves, custom curves, it is going to show me that I have used custom curves on this note. When you are zoomed out, it is not going to fit, as you can see, it is going to fit only a couple of symbols. So the more you zoomed in, the more symbols you're going to view on any particular note. Now, in order to drop every correction that we've made to reset all of that, we can right click and click reset note. Great. And actually there are three ways how we can do that depending on what it is we are going to do, we want to do. The first one I showed you, but there is actually a different method how we can do that. Let's make a correction to the first note. And now we are not happy with this correction, we want to reset this note. So let's go to color, reset selected note create. And we can see actually shortcut shift home. So we can either click in here or we can press shift home, and it's going to reset this note, only one note that we have selected. In order to reset all of these notes, but to preserve the location, the number of notes, the naming of notes, we can use a different method. So let's do some corrections to view the effect that is going to do, and we are going to go to color, reset, and grades, and keep notes. Shortcut control shift home. Click on it, and it's going to reset all of the corrections of the notes, but it's going to keep the note placing and the note naming at the same place as before. If we are not happy with nothing actually, and we want to reset everything to the default position, we can click color, reset all grades and notes, or to use shortcut, which is kind of more convenient, control home. When we click on it, everything will be resetted to the default position. Now let's have a closer look at the note itself. Let's zoom in on it. The note is being represented like a rectangle with a couple of triangles and couple of squares. We have green triangle and square and blue triangle and square. So this is an input. Triangle, it is always an input, and rectangle or cube, it is always an output. Green color shows us that this connection is an RGB connection, and the blue one shows us that it is a key connection. What does it mean? So if we're doing some color grading, every note, and by the way, I'm creating a serial note, the most popular in here, by pressing Alt S. They all are connected using RGB connection. But here's the thing. Let me show you. For example, I'm going to create a circular window in here, thus constraining the image to this, not the image, but the correction that I'm making to this particular portion. The next note is not going to contain these constraints because well, I'm going to, in most situation, I'm going to make corrections to the color, not to the portion of the image. But if for some reason I want to remain the same restraints of the color grade, I need to connect this blue color, blue connection, key connection, in order to preserve the same constraint. Not really making a lot of sense until I demonstrate it like this. For example, I am going to drag it to the blue portion, and now we have a blue circle. If we're going to the next node and I'm going to drag it to red, everything will be shifted to red. Everything that is inside the circle and outside of the circle. But if I want to contain that correction only within that circle, I need to connect this blue connection, blue output, to the blue input. And now everything that I do will be constrained by this circle. Another way how you can actually use it in a positive way, like in this tutorial, you see my face somewhere in the circle, and this is how I've done it. I've created a circle that was surrounding my face, and now if you right click in the node editor and add alpha output, because by default it is hidden, and now we are connecting alpha output to this alpha that is going to go to the render to render out the image. And now this image can be overlaid on top of the other image and is going to look like this. So this is why you would want to use this blue output. Let's disconnect it by simply dragging this line, and let's remove alpha output because we do not really need that for this particular moment. Now, if you made a color grade and you've created numerous nodes in here that are completely out of order and you have no idea what you have done and what is going after what, you can right click in here in the node editor and select cleanup node graph. It is going to do the cleanup for you and make it more beautiful. NVIDIA Studio driver is available. Finally, maybe DaVinci will start working much better after that. Anyway, let's get to the node editor. Let me see what I'm going to need to talk about. Any node can be renamed. It is a good rule of thumb in order to keep track of what you are doing and what node is doing what. In order to do that, you can right click on any node and select, if I can find that, because I have a shortcut for that, node label. And you can type anything you want, for example, like primary correction, and hit enter in order to remember what this node is actually doing. Also, you can go to DaVinci Resolve keyboard customization, find their node labeling, and tie any key to that operation that you want. In my particular instance, it is F1 in order to rename a node. Set saturation. So let's move on. Let's talk how you can disable the nodes, because sometimes you need to view how it is going to look without the effect that you have created and then with the effect. You can select any node that you want and press Ctrl D in order to deselect or disable. Yeah, it is right to say to disable them. You can also disable all of the nodes that you have by pressing Alt D. But remember, if you disabled one node separately, for example, I'm going to disable node 4 separately by pressing Ctrl D. If then I want to disable all of them and re-enable all of them by pressing Alt D again, this node will be re-enabled with them. So keep that in mind if you want to keep one node disabled for the rest of your color grading process. Well, sometimes when you're color grading the image that you have done some effects to in the Fusion page, it can be really difficult for your system to process all of that. But you can bypass all of the effects that you have created within your Fusion page by right-clicking in here and deselecting Word Fusion. This way, DaVinci will bypass everything that you have done within the Fusion page. And when you have done your color grading, you can re-enable that to view how it's going to look with the effects that you have created. It is a really useful tool to do color grading on the machine that is not that powerful. Also, in order to expedite the color grading process on the machine that is not that powerful, you can enable cache. For instance, I've done something really complicated to that node, and it's taken a lot of time to process. I can right-click in here, go to node cache and turn it on. By default, it is in auto, so it's going to cache some of the effects that you are doing, but you can enable or disable that to your liking, depending on what it is you want. Now, if you watch some of my previous tutorials, you know that the order in which you create these nodes, in which you're doing your corrections, really matter. So we are going to change the order of these nodes and show you how it is done. For example, this is for my primary correction for something like that, and this is for saturation. Let's do something in order to show you how it's done. I can extract this node by pressing E, and now this node is not connected to the pipeline. The node that is not connected to the pipeline is doing nothing, so we need to connect it somewhere. But for some reason, I want to connect it after the second node, not before. So let's drag it into this area and wait until the line becomes orange. Now let go of this node, and now this node is connected, but not before this node and after it. You can also do the same thing again and drag it in here. But if you want to swap the effects between the node 1 and node 2 instance, I want my contrast to be located on the node number 2 rather than node number 1, and I want my saturation to be located on the node number 1 rather than node number 2. So I need to swap them. It is really an easy task. All you need to do is to press Ctrl and drag this image to this node. Now the effect of this node is swapped. Right now this is saturation, as you can see the saturation is 2, and this one is responsible for contrast. You can swap them back by holding Ctrl and dragging the image to this, and now this one is responsible for saturation again, and this one is for contrast. You can swap them if you made a mistake and done something that is not supposed to be located on the first or on the second node. You can swap them like this. Now, if you have created something really complicated like this, and you do not really want it to be here to occupy that amount of space, you can create a compound node. Select everything that you want to be included, right-click, create compound node. And right now, this node shows us that we have numerous amount of inputs, and we can actually do corrections to this compound node without entering the compound node itself. This way, the corrections are going to be added to the last node, to the last node of this compound node. You can go to this compound node and view what is going on inside of it by right-clicking and show compound node. So this is what our compound node is containing. To go back, these tutorials, it is the name of the file, the name of the, like this particular project. Double-click on it, and we're going to the same level as we've been before. In order to decompose it in place, you can right-click, decompose compound node, and we're back to where we started. Now let's reset everything. And the only last thing that is left to discuss is corrections to not clip, but to the timeline. We can use these dots to go to the timeline level, or you can just click in here and go to clip, or to the timeline. What is the difference? Well, judging by the name, the corrections that we do to the clip level is going to be applied only to a separate clip, but the correction that we are going to do to the timeline is going to be applied to the whole timeline, to any clip that is within this timeline. So let's drag this color to something like blue, and if we go to the next clip that we have, it is going to show us that the same correction has been applied to the second clip, because we are doing this thing to the timeline level. Let's delete all of that and go to the clip level. This is useful if you have clips that we need to do the same correction to, for example, to trim them to any particular resolution, or to trim them, or to change color space of them using color space transform. We can use the timeline level. So this is probably everything I wanted to talk about. Thank you everybody for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.